Hello, welcome to Forest Focus. Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest are through. I've written a terrible intro there. England are through to the final of Euro 2024. Gareth Southgate is the one, and Graham Taylor is avenged at last. None of that is related to this podcast, as we answer a fine selection of your Nottingham Forest questions in the company of, first of all, Michael Temple. Temps, how are you doing?
Feeling good, mate. I was at Wimbledon yesterday. Had a lovely time of it. A nice little sportsman's dinner with Joe Worrell Monday night. And now with you boys this morning. So yeah, having a really good week.
What a life! What a life! Pete Blackburn, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. A little bit ropey after last night. I supported England with great dedication and commitment last night, but all good. Happy to be here.
To say the least. Where did you watch it?
I was at the King Billy, actually, Nottingham's best pub for anyone who knows the place in Stanton.
Second best pub.
You can't say that on here, and the NAV will shut you down.
I think I've done plenty to advertise the NAV in recent weeks. I needed a break from the things that they've been doing to me the last couple of times out, so I had to go to a sort of quieter venue.
Fair enough. We shall let you off. Right. Regular viewers will know that in the previous episodes, we have done 80s style football cards. Here is Trent, looking lovely. And here is Pete. So in the spirit of this,
yes.
In terms of wondrous hair, accentuating all the positives, here is Mr. David Prutton's via AI. There you go.
Well played.
Thank you. I thought that on Tuesday, and it made me laugh every time. I should say, Prutz, this is where it's taken from. Actually, this is your genuine Sky Sports website player profile. So you're
no way.
Yeah,
I put that on. That was a face I made when I actually signed for Swindon. I was like, oh God, really? Oh, yeah. I was. That was very good. That I wondered what it would look like, because the reality, as we know, is far more ludicrous than what AI could chuck forth, isn't it? But
I enjoy your Jesus era. The Jesus era is almost as good as the Rylan era.
Well, and now it's a bit kind of like living in a bag era. Don't worry. Straight away after this, I'm getting a professional to shave from the neck up and sort this out. Obviously, everything, as we know, as grown men, everything from the neck down is our own responsibility, isn't it? We're all broadly on board with that. But I leave it to the professionals from the neck up.
I never put mine on because of electoral rules. I didn't want to come across as too Penny Mordaunt, but that was how mine.
Or Tina Turner in Mad Max. Look at that.
Exactly. Right. We'll get to some Forest questions, as I say. Lots of good ones. Good to have so many people with us already. We'll try and leave a bit of time at the end if we can for a couple from the chat. But we'd like to say lots of good ones, starting with one from Kevin Marriott. Thanks for the question, Kevin. The start of the season is 5 weeks away. Is anyone concerned we haven't strengthened the squad, which finished 17th last season? The incomes have replaced some of those sold, with Anderson for Mangala, Miguel for Vodkodimos, and Moreira for Aguilera. We've kind of waxed lyrical about the business done, Temps, but are you any remotely worried at all that in terms of strengthening the 11, it hasn't necessarily happened yet?
No, not concerned. I like that we've done a little bit of business earlier with Elliot Anderson and the keeper, but we all know that the deals are going to get done at crunch time. We had that bit of the PSR challenge, which we've kind of sailed through, and now we can be more considered, but you're not going to get an honest price, and you're not going to understand full availability until the back end of the window. So completely relaxed. I think we had a bit of a chat in the group, didn't we, about the areas we might wish to strengthen. Centre half depth definitely required. Backups for the wingers, and another option up top. But no, absolutely no concern from me. Really impressed with the way Forest have conducted their business so far, and cigars on for a couple of weeks yet.
I know, Pete, that you've questioned transfer strategy in years gone by. It's fair to say you're pretty chilled about it so far, or do you kind of follow what Kevin's saying and think, we need to really strengthen the 11, and it's got to be done quickly?
No, I think Temps has absolutely nailed it, and I'm not sure I quite agree with the premise of the question, to be honest. I think we have strengthened. I mean, Mangala going hasn't weakened us, because we hadn't had him for half the season anyway, and we've got plenty of options in that position. And we've now signed Anderson, who I think most of us agree looks like a serious prospect and is someone who can add something sort of attacking thrust as an 8. He can give Morgan Giswhite competition or relief as a 10. He can play out wide and strengthens options there. I'd say the squad looks better than it did, thanks to his signing. And if Miguel's the sort of talent that we hope he is, then we've strengthened again there because we were pretty worried about our backup keepers before. So I'm not sure I quite agree with the premise. And no, I think Temps is bang on about everything. It's obviously ideal to get your business done as early as possible, but it's just not as simple as that. And I think for Forest this summer, we've had a bit of a reset in terms of players leaving, the wage bills come down. The most important thing now is getting it right. We just need to be precise with the players that we do add. We need to get as many of those right as possible and not bring too many in. And personally, that's my priority. Not worrying too much about how quickly it happens.
What do you make of it from afar, Prutz? And I think you've been either commentating at the Euros or on a voyage of self-discovery around Amsterdam for the last few weeks. What do you make of Forest business and the wider state of football transfers? Because it's gone a bit mad, but it's all PSR related, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it went mad in a certain era where everyone was spending money. Now it's a kind of chess game, isn't it, with regards to who goes where and what fits budgets, and also potentially heading off problems that are coming over the horizon. I think Forest find themselves in a position that probably 95% of clubs do, away from the absolute kind of financial giants. Is you've got to kind of wait your turn. Things move at a certain speed. There'll be several selections of players that they've got if they've done the due diligence, and I'd like to think they would have done. First choice, second choice, third choice, whatever, that need to fit or need to be put into motion as and when it fits, whether that's finances, whether that's a place in the squad, whether that's having someone that the manager ultimately can work with in his squad. So there's so many kind of ducks to put in a row that I'll go along with Temps with that. The business that you're looking at that's been done so far seems promising within the parameters of what Forest can do financially. I think it's an intriguing way to phrase the question with regards to referencing where the team finished. Because I think if you think that changes such as the ones that brought in, with the greatest respect to the players that are brought in, Sonny catapult Forest up from 17th to 10th, I wouldn't say that'd be the case. And I'm not being condescending when I reference the question, but because that type of leap forward is a staggering amount of money that needs to be spent, and quite clearly that can't be the case with this kind of middle portion of teams in the Premier League. So yeah, plenty to be very positive about. It's always good when things keep ticking along, keeps you interested over the close season, doesn't it? And the type of players and the people that are brought in sound, having not seen much of any of them, sound very promising.
A sort of a follow-up question leading off from that then, Temp. So it says Stephen Downs. Do you think keeping hold of, he says here, Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White and Murillo sends a message to the rest of the league that we're a serious outfit? Does it make us a team to watch effectively, I guess?
We're a long way from keeping hold of all four of those players. I think we'll be tested in this window with bids for all four, rumoured interest in Elanga, multiple clubs looking at Odoi. I think Morgan Gibbs-White would definitely be on some lists in the Premier League, and Murillo's in another category altogether. I think European-wide scouting reports on that player will be considered right until the window slams shut. So for me, in wanting to improve the team and kick on and retain the key elements, those four players are amongst the first on my team sheet. But that story's not run yet. There'll be our resolve will be tested at some point, particularly with Murillo, I think. Let's not forget Hudson-Odoi was bought for a song and doesn't have ever so long left on his contract. I think he's coming into the final 2 years, a bit more certainty with Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White. But all four of those players were reason for us accumulating points when we did last season. I'd like to see them all start the season. And if we do that, it would send a statement that we're able to conduct our business in such a manner that allows us to keep hold of the crown jewels, because Mangala and Niakate weren't that. They were squad players. They were useful. They contributed to some positive results, but they've been moved on for significant profit to allow us the right to keep hold of those four. But I think our resolve will be tested as the window draws towards an end.
I suppose that's the question, isn't it, Pete? To rephrase it then, as Temps touched on there, if we keep those four players, does that make us a team to watch in them as the one that could break from the pack that you often see? I guess it was probably Palace this year, it was Brighton the year before. Could it be us next year if we keep those players?
I don't think it's impossible, but I mean, there's an awful lot of the rest of the team to be concerned about as well. I mean, even with Murillo and Gibbs White in that, there's still quite a lot of a spine of a team that needs to be performing well for us to be, in that sort of situation where we are making a real impact. But I mean, if it did come to the point where the window closes or slams shut, as I guess we've probably got to say, and we had all those players, I mean, I'd be feeling pretty optimistic about where we could go, because actually, I think we were often quite negative about the end of the season because we were in a real dogfight. But there was a lot of stuff on the eye test and the underlying data that made me think we were going in the right direction. And with a pre-season for Nuno, I'm actually feeling pretty confident about where we might be able to go. But the point is, it's just, last attempt says, it's just such a long time, and so much is going to happen. And on the wider point, I mean, we've obviously solved the PSR issues for the window just closed, or the period just closed. But I think it's probably still the case that one of those or someone else is going to have to go for profit before June the 30th next year, because that's just how it is now. Even with the accounting changing and us having more allowance because we've got another year in the Premier League, that's another year of Premier League wages as well. It's not just free money to play with. In an ideal world, if we get to the end of the season, we've had all of those players playing, we've had a great season and they've all played well, and then one of them goes for big money before June the 30th, then brilliant. I'd be surprised if we keep hold of all of them, but it'd be a seriously pleasant surprise. And I do think we can go places with the sort of bones of the squad, with a few good additions.
Yeah, I think so. Feel free to add on to that, Prutz, but also I'll throw in an extra question from Forest on the Up. In an ideal world, what would be the latest new players have to be signed by? I guess, can you speak to experience on that if you've signed later in a window for a club in your career?
Well, I actually signed on deadline day from Forest to Southampton. And obviously that turned out well, didn't it? And obviously January is a different kettle of fish, but with pre-season, fundamentally, I was thinking of one of the questions that are a little further down the track about what pre-season is. Fundamentally, all footballers now are fit. No one goes to pre-season to get fit anymore. That's decades ago. So you're going to have someone that is going to come on board first and foremost, ready and raring to go. Secondly, it's about how quickly this player can take up what the manager wants, how quickly they can adapt to the players that they're going to play with. We talk about systems, we talk about formations. Nuno seems very methodical. I'm sure he's got a wonderful way of explaining what he wants, of getting his points across. And then it's up to the club and the player to do both sets of due diligence, whether that football club fits you, whether that player fits your football club. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to how late a player comes in. I think the other side of it is, as Temps was saying, you've got to really keep half an eye on who's going to come and maybe swoop down, because price-wise, everyone's got the price. Every club's a selling club. It's funny, as Temps was talking then, the players that we're talking about, Murillo is one that stands out. And obviously, with what I do predominantly is working with the Championship. And you look at, say, Brennan, obviously playing in the Championship, playing in the Premier League, playing for his country. He moves for a certain fee. We've just seen Archie Gray, haven't we, go from Leeds to Tottenham, which, chucking in Joe Rodon, it sounds like Archie probably went for about 35 on his own type of fee. And then looking at, say, a Hull City bartering with Ipswich over Jacob Greaves and potentially Jayden Philogene. Now, these aren't insignificant amounts of money. The average of all those players is about 20 to 25 million quid. So then it throws forward. What then is a price that shakes Murillo out of Forest's tree? Sorry for the pun. Whether someone comes in and says, here's 50, here's 60, that then, or obviously we're talking about a more defensive-minded player, but we've all said he's got the ability to play further up the pitch because of how good he is on the ball. After that, it's about the mobility of the player and how he gets around. So that's the intriguing thing for me. Not trying to cast it down on what we're all saying, but if you're thinking about it from a Forest faithful perspective, at what stage do you nod your head and go, that actually makes sensible financial business that, like I said, a 50 or a 60 gets chucked down? And sometimes the structure of the payment's different. That, I believe, is why the Brentford deal for Archie didn't quite go through, because it was kind of backdated rather than a bigger lump up top. I'm just intrigued with that, because as much as it's about your business and getting players in and seeing how good they are and part of your squad, as the boys are saying, it's imperative that those players that were the bright sparks from last season, more consistency needed across the board from top downwards, I believe. But keeping those, developing those more, that pre-season with Nuno, there's a Forest team in there that's absolutely able to really duke it out in that middle portion of the Premier League, definitely.
Just before, I'll throw to Prutz that other pre-season question that he referenced, but just before then, a word for the Trent Nav, as mentioned, the best pub in Nottingham. It is on Saturday, is Trent Nav Fest from 2 p.m. Get your tickets by going to gigantic.com, searching Trent Nav Fest, raising good money for charity, an event organised by the Tryst. Basically, I think it's mostly covers from the 80s through to today. You can see a list of the bands involved there, from Stan Buckroy to the Tryst, High Speed Peach, magnificent name, etc., etc. So thanks for their support. I saw loads of footage of people enjoying the England game last night, of course, at the Nav. Very much looking forward to the final.
Apart from Pete.
Apart from Pete, he's been at the previous ones.
On his own in that boozer times. He was on his own in that boozer watching Sky Sports News updates of the game. Defiantly not watching the game. Drinking on his own.
I saw Sky Sports tweet out a picture. Shouldn't rag Sky Sports with you here, Prutz, but a tweet of Gareth Ainsworth reacting to England's goal of him watching the game, rather than just watching the game. But anyway, this is going to be a quick yes or no question because we've got loads to get through. But was it a penalty last night, Temps?
No.
Pete?
Why have you given us a yes/no question on this?
I know, it's ridiculous yes/no. I mean, it's so debatable.
So much more.
Is it?
I think it's fine. So I'm going to say fine. It's okay. I haven't got a big problem with it.
I'll give you a bit longer then, Prutz, because I definitely didn't think it was a penalty. Obviously, I was thrilled to get it, but
I'm buzzing to get it, and not. What's bored me this rigid over this set of Euros and following it on all different media platforms is the over-intellectualization of football. It's rubbish. Better players play better, more consistently, win more games. That's not poo-pooing what Pep does or Jose or anyone like that is, but breaking it down to the far end of a fart does my head in. But Ian Wright made a very good point. If that happens with a fullback clearing a ball and a centre forward goes and chucks his boot out to shut him down, it's a foul 100% of the time. 100% of the time. I take Gary Neville's point that if you can't defend like that last ditch in the box, then certain parts of the game need seriously looking at. But the minute you chuck VAR into it, this is what happens. There you go. No VAR. That there's no penalty there. That plays on. But you've moved the goalpost completely. VAR intervenes. That's what happens. So I could to sit on the fence. I can see how it wouldn't be a penalty, and I can absolutely see how it could be a penalty.
Yeah.
I should point out too that our nation and our club have both suffered from being on the wrong side of this kind of stuff. And 5 seconds before Harry Kane swung his leg at it, I'm pretty sure Saka handballs it as well. So we're due a bit of VAR luck. As soon as the ref gets sent over, you know it's being given. I was surprised he was sent over. He had a good view at the time, and the range of debate and that margin means for me it wasn't a clear and obvious error. But yeah, fair play. Harry Kane keeps cool, sets us on our way.
This is very much in the parameters. Well, it's very exactly. It's re-reffing the game. It's not a clear and obvious error. That's just changing a decision at will, which is not what VAR's for.
No, and did reference Graham Taylor at the top there. So finally getting revenge for Koeman not getting sent off 32 years ago, whatever it was. Yeah, so there you go. Happy.
What about his free kick in the same game though? There was a replay of that as well where he just dinks it over the wall, which you're looking at it now and you go, how on earth hasn't he just jogged over and caught it? It was, I mean, there was a great bit of disguise, and obviously Koeman's one of the best exponents of a dead ball that we've seen in the last 50 years. But come on, it was like chipping over your son in the back garden and running off.
There you go.
Anyway.
There you go. Right, let's go. I can't. I'll just ask you one more yes or no question really quickly. Are we going to beat Spain? Temps? Are we going to beat Spain?
Yes.
Pete?
Absolutely.
Prutz?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes as well.
It's coming home, isn't it?
I would have said no chance before we played well last night, but I'll definitely say yes now. I feel like we've got the tournament mentality. Right, back to the questions. Philip Mills, a question. I think he lives in Copenhagen. So a question all the way from Denmark to Prutz. What is the best and the worst thing about pre-seasons from your experience?
The best thing is, and I can say this after having been in Hamburg for 3 weeks, on the Hamburg diet of beer and meat is that you will never look better, you'll never feel fitter, you'll never be at your better fighting weight than coming out of pre-season. And the worst part about it is it's relatively physically taxing. That's literally the only thing. But it's a glorious time to be alive, and I miss it very much when I look down at this 42-year-old body I've got now.
You can still do pre-season props even if you're not doing the season.
At the back, yeah. I could do it in the manner of what Tony Vaughan did, which was just stand at the back and moan and rip people to shreds in that wonderfully thick Manc accent of his.
He used to love his warm-ups where he just pride himself on doing some 60-yard headed clearances.
Crap! I mean, they were the. I mean, I love Bonnie to bits, but they were the dark days, weren't they? Like, we're talking about Forest asserting themselves in the Premier League, not those bunch of muppets volleying balls 60 yards, trying to control it and run around after each other.
Back to the Premier League questions then. Robbo is a genius asks, will Ryan Yates get a new contract? Yes, I'm pretty sure he will. And I think that's probably not far away from happening. But also, Pete, should we look to extend Hudson-Odoi's contract, which has got 2 years left? Ola Aina has got 1 year, potential of an option there, as Robbo mentions, and Morgan Gibbs-White to protect our investments. What do you think about starting those talks now?
Just before I go on to that, can I just say massive yes to Yates to getting a new contract? And I think it is, as you say, it is already happening. It's absolutely absurd that he's paid what he is when you have players like Kouyaté getting paid 4 times him. You know, he's proved himself over 2 years in the Premier League, rises to every single challenge, every obstacle, and even if he's not first name on the team sheet now, he's going to be pushing every single player in that team seriously hard, and he's just absolutely ideal to have him around, and I hope he sticks around. On the others, I mean, I think in an ideal world, and I think a lot of clubs have this sort of principle in place, you don't want players to be getting into the last 2 years of their contract if you still want to keep them around. It's obviously a lot more complicated than that because you can't just force people to sign contracts. But I think that's the sort of principle you try and work to. And I guess it has to be a bit of give and take. You know, if we want to extend Hudson-Odoi's contract, the way to do it probably is to say, look, we want some security and we want a longer time remaining, but we're going to give you a minimum free release clause in there that it sets your value at a level where if you have a stonking season, someone's going to pay that fee. We're all going to benefit because, you know, it's a genuine reflection of your value. But also it gives you something to work to and an opportunity to better yourself if you do work to those levels. So I think that's probably how I'd be looking at it. I think all of those are players that you don't want to have a situation where their contracts are running down. But obviously it's a balance, isn't it? Because you also can't be handing out massive wages because you're desperate to keep people, because we really need to keep that structure and that under control as well. I think we've already been burnt a little bit on wages in the last couple of years. So, you know, it's very easy to say what you want to happen. I think generally speaking, I'd be desperately trying not to let players' contracts go under 2 years if they're people you want to keep around, because it gets difficult. Then you start to hear a lot of agent talk. I think it probably can be a bit of a distraction. And the sort of security and stability you get from a longer contract is ideal. But there does have to be a bit of give and take. And I think we do have to probably accept that a lot of these players are going to move on when they do well. But appreciate that as being a sort of a good part of what we're doing here. That's the absolute ideal, is we sign players like Hudson-Odoi, give them a chance to show their best and get back to something that they used to be. And then, you know, he's repaid with a better contract at a bigger club somewhere else, and we're all happy with that because we go and do it again and we enjoy the journey on the way. So that's sort of how I see it. But it's not easy business, I don't think. Obviously Prutz will know much better than I do. It's tough.
Talk to us about contract negotiations then, Prutz. I guess how involved is
get your pay slips out?
How involved is a player in their own contract negotiations? Is it literally left to the agent saying, look, I've negotiated this and this is what you've got to sign?
From what I remember, and it's a very, very long time ago, it was always good to have an agent who knew what the kind of ballpark figures were in the particular club that you were playing for. And then it was kind of left to them, really. And you hopefully put your trust in the people that are looking for you with your best interest, which you sincerely hope to do. My agent I was one of his first clients, and he had a little office in Hockley, which was SFX at the time, with Struan and Marshall. Struan Marshall was Stephen Gerrard's agent. And as my career kind of meandered along and then meandered off, my agent had worked his way up to looking after people like Virgil van Dijk. so when I was scratching around out in the second half of my career and trying to negotiate stuff with one of his kind of, I say minions, that's a bit disrespectful. He was a lovely fella. But when he was kind of moving Virgil from Southampton to Liverpool for the best part of 80 million quid, me saying, what do you think my appearance should be at Scunny, was not quite high on his on its agenda.
You can have Virgil, but you got to take David Prutton as well. They come as a pair or not at all.
Yeah. We've heard about the big Dutch fella, but the other one you're on about, no idea. So then you do trust in what that is. I mean, the thing that fascinates me now about this is the intricacies of what these contracts will entail. Whether you're talking about not just on the field stuff with regards to kind of performance related pay, bonuses, etc., but image rights and what comes with a player's personal profile away, which can make them serious money off the pitch. So there'll be so many intricacies in that. There'll be a manager involved, as in the player's manager. There'll be the agent. There'll be, I'm sure there's lawyers and solicitors along that type of line as well. And I don't think it'll be remotely straightforward. Like I said, mine almost sounds like a bit of a throwback to a bygone era where it was all very kind of straightforward. And the thing that intrigues me about just mentioning Yatesy very, very briefly and the kind of wage structure period, it's such a very, very good point that, and I mean this with all kind of sincerity and love for the football club, there was always that element of players that had come through that because you were so kind of attached and just happy to be there and glad that everything was going great, I think there was a little bit of a discrepancy between that. And I totally, I mean, that I'm not trying to, you're not trying to big up your own role in the team at the time, because the players come in for money, then they're going to get paid decent wage and they've got like a good career experience behind them. But I would say relatively, it would be similar to the Yatesy position where he's come through and all these bigger names players have come in. Some have come in and done absolutely nothing, but would have been earning vast amounts of money compared to what he has. That goes off what their market rate is. If they've come from a team that's got promoted, suddenly your wage demands can start there, rather than Yates is perhaps starting there, incrementally working the way upwards. So it's absolutely right that he gets rewarded for that. But other than that kind of homegrown element to it, and again, if you're looking at, say, you talk about the big goalkeeper that we're going to come on to that's come from a different continent, what you hear with that is it's not just one player, one agent, is it? It's one player, several people around him trying to facilitate them getting across the other side of the planet to play football. So it's a minefield. Hopefully now with people in place at Forest and given what they've had to do with the PSR stuff, it should be a battle-hardened department that knows exactly what it's worth and what it's prepared to pay. But it's never remotely straightforward. There's got to be a bit of give and take. You've got to come away from the kind of cap in hand, cheers, governor, it's nice to be around type stuff, especially if you're a player that's come through the ranks, because it's a short career. You've got to know your worth, and it's an element of the game that absolutely fascinates me of how it gets from player wants to sign to player holding the shirt up, having signed on the dotted line.
An old school friend of mine is an agent. He's going to come on the podcast in the next couple of weeks to kind of defend their case, I guess. But one last question on agents, because I think it's interesting. It's a bit of a tangent. How influential is agent choices on the success of a career? Because I think Lewis had a couple of bad experiences. Paul Anderson, I'm sure, had a couple of bad experiences around being badly advised and stuff like that. How important is it getting the right people around you to tell you who to sign for and how to manage your money as well and stuff like that?
It's huge. I mean, coming away from football for a second, I'm sure, and it's only what I've read in pretty respectable kind of media outlets. If you look at Sir Bradley Wiggins' situation, where he has had an astonishingly, staggeringly successful career, but has alluded to the fact that the people that were meant to be looking after the stuff off the bike, while he gave everything to the stuff on the bike, haven't quite done the job. So there is, even more so now with footballers and footballers at the top level. I've already referenced Brennan Johnson and Archie Gray. From what I hear and see and the little bits that I know about the two lads, but also knowing the dads and playing with both of them, from what I hear, they're both very actively involved in what goes on. Not for their own gain at all. It's your flesh and blood, so you're helping out the facilitation of that. So hopefully you'd like to think that a familial structure and bond helps to steer away from that type of stuff. If players are hell-bent on being reckless and careless, then maybe there's very little in the way to stop them. But a good agent, good management, they've got to defend your corner as well, and also PR when it comes to wherever your career may go, whether it's international, whether it's kind of European-based football. Jude Bellingham, again, another great example of having his family around him, very wise choices, very kind of heavily thought out progress path, which seems hopefully it's going to peak an early peak in his career, hopefully on Sunday. But they're absolutely imperative, mate. You say you've got an agent coming on who's going to reflect or kind of make the agent's standpoint. Agents have had a bad rep in the past. I think they've changed slightly because as much as football clubs love and care, and there's a duty of care about their players, they're not going to go out of the way to make sure that their player gets top dollar. They're going to give them their version of what top dollar is. The agent's job is to maximize what the player's worth. So there's absolutely a role for them. Maybe there's a discussion about how much goes out of the game to agents when you look at January transfer windows and summer transfer windows and where that money could get put to. But until a better model's shown where you can altruistically move that money into very, very important charitable cases around whatever division you're talking about, then agents will exist.
I was going to ask Prutz every single question to annoy the Billy Davis chap in the comments, but I think he's gone.
Is he back? Yeah.
He's gone, I think.
Is he? I would sincerely hope he mentioned Yeovil and then just see what happened. That would be amazing.
That was the first one. And it descended from there. Yeah. Right. Back to the questions from Dansgate. How would the ex-pros, notice the plural on the panel there, Temps, try and find a weakness against 6'8" Carlos Miguel? I think I never know with Dan if it's a slightly facetious question or not. But he does say, will the team be practicing daisy cutters the week before playing Forest? It's interesting. He's going to have a big test, isn't he, really, coming from South American football. Teams are going to focus on his size. Are they just going to completely change how they do set pieces against us? They're going to bomb it in on him and test him early doors if he's in the team, that is, Temps.
I think we'll get in the side. I've read that the statistical analysis and the comparison between him and Matt Sells and what he does well. And there's quite a few attributes where he's in that 95th percentile, albeit playing in South American football. So first and foremost, we need to test him at this level. Reference Sangare, reference several other players that have come with big rep from a lower level. But I think his attributes and his sheer physicality is going to put him in our side pretty early on. He's going to get first showing in pre-season, and I think he'll have the gloves first game. In terms of analysing his weaknesses, I don't think it's as simple to say that a big lad struggles to get down. There's lots of clips of him making instinctive saves with his feet. There's lots of saves of him covering ground really quickly. He's obviously good under the high ball. That's a given. He's 6'8". He's the tallest player in the Premier League. But I don't think he's got any particular weakness identified in shot stopping, and I fully expect him to surpass Matt Sells and become Forest's number one this season.
We're going to rattle through a few more here. They've got loads of good questions. Lots of people asking about John Joe Shelvey. Is he still a Forest player? I mean, I don't know anything different than what's been reported, so right. I believe he's gone. But there's some reports around him still being on our books and potentially going to Turkey. If he is, that would create a can of worms, I would say, around the. Did we
let him off? What was the controversy? Was it referenced on the site that it was a loan and then a transfer? There was some kind of subtle edit, wasn't there, that suggested his contract status was different to what we were led to believe?
Well, he went on loan, and then it was reported that we actually paid him up to let him go permanently because we'd had too many international loans. We'd hit the limit, and we'd be breaking it if we had another player out on loan. Because of around ages of players going out on loan, if you're over a certain age, then you count as an international loan. I think Gaines, the Wees, might have went to Belgium or something like that, so we had to pay Shelvey up. People speculating he's still on our books. I don't know. I think he's gone, but I don't know.
My hunch is he's gone.
Yeah, I think so. Right, there's a few more questions. Some of them are not entirely Forest related. We'll rattle through a few more. Robert Ray, not a Forest question particularly, but in general, should cheating footballers be banned or fined retrospectively? The amount of cheating in the Euros is embarrassing. I don't think it's anything different to any other level of scene of diving around. What do you think, Pete?
I don't really know the answer to this. I mean, I think the problem with trying to address this is that most of the moments where you might say someone's cheating are pretty subjective, and it's pretty hard to. I mean, I guess the idea would you'd have some sort of panel watching incidents back and saying, right, okay, that's a simulation, so we'll give that guy a retrospective 1-match ban or something along those lines. I mean, in theory, I've got no issue with that, and I'd love to see that side of the game not happen so much. But like in practice, it's probably going to be quite a costly process for some guys to look at incidents where very few are going to be like absolutely beyond doubt. And I'm not sure you can really be going around banning footballers if you're not totally sure that they've dived. I guess there are occasions where somebody's nowhere near the man that they're tackling, and then they have appealed vociferously, and you might be able to be relatively sure. But players are running at pace, and there's a lot of context to it, isn't there? So I just don't really know how you would do it. I mean, I'd certainly diving in particular does irritate me, and I prefer to not be saying it, but I just don't know what the way around it is, to be honest.
How much are players actually diving, do you think, Pruts? Because Pete mentions reference to the pace that players move at. Obviously, there's some blatant examples where you can see they blatantly dive, but how much does a slight contact at that top level really knock you over?
Pruts played with Jack Lester, who's one of the masters of this.
Jack was an apps. I mean, it was, it was amazing for that, and he laughed his arse off every time. But he was, and I remember when I came across Rob Jones when I was at Wednesday, and I kind of casually dropped. We were chatting about something. I mentioned I knew Jack, and he nearly ripped my head off. What do you mean? You spent time with Jack Lester? I said, yeah, he's one of a good mate of mine in football. And he was like, you're diving all the time. I said, mate, if you're gonna get sucked into it, he's gonna be on his arse. That's just what, obviously, part of many good things that Jack did. But it was uncanny the way he could do it. I'm totally on board with Pete. It's so subjective. I've done a lot of work with the PGMOL, looking at ironically trying to give my experience as an ex-pro to help them out. Basically, don't chase them and don't push them on touchlines. Otherwise, you get really into trouble doing that. But it is really tough. And having done a fair bit of co-commentary, and especially coming away from the Euros, you get all, and it's a bit different when you work for UEFA, because you are working on UEFA, and UEFA is selling this around the world. So very rarely do you go all in on a referee, because that's a very quick way not to get a spat to the next tournament. But there are some times when you're watching replays, and I do it when I've commentated on the Premier League, where you can't help but say you've got to call it out. Some of it, if it is blatantly embarrassing, if it is blatant cheating, you've got to say it. I always think, regardless of who your paymasters are. And it is something that playing would have absolutely got me nose. The other side of it, of where you can manipulate a situation to get the correct outcome. Going back to Pete's point, where does that go from being clever to being cynical to being a cheat? It's along that line. We've all seen the blatant examples of it, which absolutely should be stamped out, and then I think can be retrospectively looked at. But then you're into clear and obvious territory, which used with VAR isn't clear and obvious anyway, is it? So I think it's really tough. But it's, sometimes look culturally at the way footballers play football week in, week out. I would say, looking at Jude Bellingham last night and throughout the tournament, without generalising what Spanish football looks like, there's challenges that he goes down under that for Dortmund probably wouldn't have done. Definitely wouldn't have done for Birmingham City, because all they do is leather you up in the air in the Championship. So culturally, there's a slight evolution to the way that he plays his football. And even sat with my lad watching it, where he's kind of going, well, he's not touched him. And you're going, well, I know that. So why has he gone down? Well, has he got a free kick? Yeah, but I'm hate myself for explaining to you it this way, but that's part of the game. It's part of the game that I would gladly see wiped out, because it's crap, to be honest. But it's here, and it's up to the management of the players and the refereeing of the players to keep it as in check as we can just about stomach. Because I'd like to think that I speak for a lot of football fans where it is on a tipping point where grown men are going down. The holding the head one is a disgrace, because everyone knows that once you hold your head, you've got to stop the game. How many times do they get up and run off? Woe betide the referee that plays on that one time when he thinks he's simulating with a head injury, and he's got a concussion, a serious brain injury. So that job in itself is very tough. And all of it being subjective just makes it even tougher.
Quick word of thanks for Home Move estate agents. Thanks for their support as ever. Backed us for a while. You can see on the screen. It is Ben at homemoveea.co.uk. If you want to get in touch with Ben Sales, if you're looking to buy or sell in the Nottingham or Notts area, they are 5-star rated on Google, so they are the people you can trust. Right, next question, probably best aimed at temps from a commercial point of view. Sean Murray had a thought yesterday around the netball team playing at the arena. And well done to Forest for the expansion of the women's team. We discussed that the other day. Would it be possible for Forest to buy the arena? The owner clearly wants expansion. I guess it fits in around the City Ground debate. What do you think about that? That's a huge outlay, Temps. Is it even remotely feasible, do you think?
Well, the arena loses a lot of money and is kind of justified by council ownership because of the cultural impact and the knock-on impact in restaurants, car parks and transport infrastructure around the city. So I think if Mr. Renakis was to look at the accounts of that building, he wouldn't necessarily want to add it to his empire. But I do really like this multi-sport effort, this folding in of professional netball team brand under the Forest umbrella, the commitment to have full-time professional women from 25, 26. I'm really behind that. I don't necessarily think it's part of any drive to create, positive cash in these businesses to plow into the Forest men's team, because it's an absolute dot on the horizon compared to the broadcast, match day, commercial revenues that Forest will now churn as a Premier League club. So no, I don't expect them to buy the arena. I think off the back of the netball and the women's team commitment, we could well see moves into esports, moves into whatever other sport or facet we think would benefit the Forest brand. But no, buying the arena is not going to improve the profitability of our football club.
I think something intriguing about what you're saying there, Temps, pops up because I remember having a chat with Lee Johnson a very long time ago when he was Bristol City boss. I don't think this is betraying any confidentiality, but he absolutely hates. No, not really. It's about. The diving Jack Lester. Because the business model down in Bristol, I think, is similar in the way that they've kind of ingested several different sporting clubs. But the overarching umbrella is what the football makes and the football club makes, which then permeates down. So he was kind of alluding to the fact that if we sell such and such for 10 million quid, that doesn't give me 10 million quid to spend on someone else. That goes down, and breaks down a little bit. So it's a wonderful thing that if he's investing in what Nottingham is and what Nottingham's got as so many different attractive points from a sporting point of view, I just think if you do see that, and further down the line, you kind of if it did ever happen, and Forest branched out and Nottingham branched out, and suddenly you were thinking, well, we're selling this player for that, and why hasn't that been kind of allotted for football? It would be because I would presume, not knowing the business structure of it at all, that would be a way to facilitate and finance many other things that aren't necessarily to do with what you'd see at the City Ground on a Saturday afternoon, if that makes sense. Yeah,
the Bristol sport model is pretty unique, but it was an experiment, wasn't it, to try and bring those things together under one roof. And I think when you've got a stadium that lends itself to multi-sport, that is a massive thing. We look at Spurs with the NFL and the concerts and the ease and the pace for which they're able to do that absolutely benefits the football club and helps them with the £1 billion mortgage they had to take out to build that thing. So I think things like the concerts, pie in the sky, but if in time there was sustainable Premier League rugby or some kind of sport that commanded 30,000 seats, that would be of benefit to Forest. But the rest of it is a bit of a brand play and this multi-sport dominance thing, this kind of European sporting club model that's happens at Olympiacos, happens at Barcelona and many others. And I think also there's some altruism in there. We saw the anti-racism, the togetherness convention. We've seen big strides in the women's team under this ownership. That there have been recent appointments. I know Lorraine Baggs has gone in there with a directorship brief to bring this Sport for Nottingham thing together. So there's definitely a feeling, a drive from the ownership to have some kind of community good. But no, I don't see us going down that any kind of desire to buy city centre arenas.
A couple of good questions to finish because Prutz has got to disappear by 11, so I want to throw these at him. Actually, this first question is really aimed at Pete and Temps as fans, much as Prutz loves Forest, but as the hardcore fans, Tim Martin asks, would you rather England win the Euros or Forest finish top 6 next season, Pete?
Forest top 6, no question. Gareth's bringing it home anyway, so both will happen.
Well, that's cheating. Okay. What about you, Tim?
Club before country at 100%. I take so much from Forest's battle to gain every single inch in the Premier League. I've had such a great time following the Championship season where we got promoted, and it was framed by years of frustration before that. And I'm enjoying the Euros, but I'll forget about it in 3 weeks' time, and I'll be back to supporting my club because it means so much more to me for Forest to win than England. Love England, but yeah, a distant second to Forest after a victory.
Yeah, I'd be the same, I must admit. Like when England lost the final to Italy, I was, like Temp says, gutted at the time, fine the next day. If Forest had lost at Wembley, then that would haunt us for years to come. So that'll be how.
Was it you at Wembley in Italy? You had to take that flare out, put it out.
Matt Davis's lowest moment.
This is inappropriate now, isn't it? Yeah. Trudging home.
Right, final question. It's a good one from Ian Allsop. What is your pet peeve or dislike about football? Start with Temps. Unless you need time to think, Temps.
Yeah, well, okay, pass the baton. Come back to me.
Okay. Pete, have you thought about it or are you too hungover?
No, I mean, the really boring, obvious answer is VAR because I just wish it never happened. And I certainly wish the way it happens in our football wasn't the case because it is just so relentlessly slow and just feels a bit consuming now. And just the conversation around it, and it's just like a whole new psychodrama that I could just do without, to be honest. The other answer I'd say is Mikey Clark on group chats.
Mikey Clark, full stop.
Last night before the game, he was piling in on Phil Foden. And
He's piling in on Phil Foden to me as well, yeah.
And I had to give him a bit of a slap down and then put how to talk gambling on here, but I had to put a bit of cash on Foden inspiring England victory just in the hope that I could shove it back in Mikey's face. So that'd be my other answer.
Someone's asking Fallsblock in the quick repeatedly about the match on Saturday. Will it be streamed? I don't know. It might be via Forest or Chesterfield. Check their club websites, but I don't think the radio are commentating on anything like that. Right. I did give this some thought. I don't know if Prutz has thought about it or not, but I made some quick notes last night. I've got a couple trying to think outside the box. Fans in the UK not seeing games that people can watch in the rest of the world is a bit annoying when we're paying a huge amount of money for BT and Sky, obviously. So that was one. I think every game should be made pay-per-view for a couple of quid, really. Again, love Sky Sports, Prutz.
I'll take it up. I'll take it with a bus.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. My other pet peeve in football, I did see a good one about short corners, though I don't mind them. My other pet peeve in football is Cristiano Ronaldo, who I think, and I've always thought, is a bit of a tit. Revel in seeing him fail, frankly. I've never watched a Ronaldo game and thought I really want him to do well. All the teams he's played for, I don't like particularly. And if it's Real Madrid, I want to lose to Barcelona. If it's Saudi Arabia, I can't say I've seen it. So, yeah. And also another reason I think he's a tit is because I was...
You said it twice now. Doesn't that break the algorithm or whatever? Are you allowed to say that twice? You have to put an expletive warning up now, mate.
The good thing, I don't think it's technically defamation what you're saying. So I think you're just on the right side legally of what it is. It's not going to affect his earning power, is it? You calling him a tit?
I was on parents' duty at my son's Beavers group the other week, and they were playing football, and there was one kid who every time someone made contact with me, 7, he went down holding his face, and I was getting more and more annoyed about it. But you're in that situation where you can't have a go at a little child, can you? When his dad's there, as well helping, and you're just thinking, what are you teaching your kid?
Hope he's listening.
Yeah.
Well, I live in a village where not many people are Forest fans, so I've
got mine for you, Matt.
Good. I'll read the quotes and see if there's any more, and then I'll come to Prutz. What's yours, Temps?
timekeeping. So average ball in play time in the Premier League, somewhere around 55 minutes of the 90. But within that, some teams have massive discrepancies away from that. Newcastle in particular take a long time restarting games, taking penalties, taking goal kicks, time wasting at the end. I would just advocate for some standardized time, ball in play for 60 minutes, rather than the fella in black having a bit of a guess as to how many he's gonna add on at the end, and then further delays. And Billy was the king of this. Send Chris Cohen over to the far touchline to take 90 seconds to walk back across the pitch, and there's moments when it's in your favour. But I would advocate for the standardised time of ball in play at Premier League level.
Any gripes for you, Prutz, with the game?
The over-intellectualisation of football, as I mentioned, it's a simple game made very complicated by players that can't do it properly, and the sheer which many of my managers will relate to. I think it takes away from what it is, that sheer unbridled joy. The look on, and again, maybe this is leaning into a bit of VAR as well with you, Pete, but the look on Ollie's face last night when he scored, and that genuine abandon and joy of what it means, come away from the cool celebrations and knowing where the camera is. Another one that Ronaldo knows. He knows exactly when he's on the Jumbotron. There I am again. I'm just having a quick little look over there. So yeah, anything that saps the innate joy out of football, making it too regulated or too strict or too kind of robotic, gets a massive thumbs down from me, because what you saw on Ollie Watkins' face last night was a kid scoring the winner just before the lunch bell goes to get back for double maths in the afternoon. It was literally that, but on a European stage, and it was a joy to see.
Very good. Love it. Right. If people have enjoyed this, of course, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe, especially hit subscribe. That really helps. And give us a lovely review on iTunes and become a channel member. Well, we don't have time for any extra questions, but we will do one of these again soon. So thanks for the 300 people who've been with us in the chat. Any final words before we go, Pete?
No, nothing from me. Or maybe should sort of read out a number for the Samaritans or something for Cristiano Ronaldo when he hears how you think about it. Poor
I don't think there's any denting his ego, to be honest.
He's going to be devastated, mate. I think he's probably quite a thin skin, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure. Temps, anything from you before we go?
I'm going to defend Ronaldo because he's my favourite player of all time. So I think
he's not.
Temps, shut up.
Watch football. Have you seen this guy's numbers? Come on.
Yeah, but it's only about the numbers, isn't it?
Football's meant to make you feel something. It's not record. I know it's recorded for posterity and stats and stuff, but you'll never forget the way people made you feel, will you?
I don't want to go for a beer with him in Pete's empty pub. I just want to admire him as a
Billy No Mates with Pete. Is that what the pub was called, did you say?
Would you rather watch Ronaldo or Messi?
Look, Ronaldo for me, endlessly better. I know the kids say Ronaldo and the purists say Leo Messi, but this guy's relentless. The first to get the dietitian, the physio, the conditioning, and yeah, look, he's come from very little, hasn't he? He was born on a holiday island with very little culture and everything else. He's honed that to become what he's became. And look, I'll get ripped by half the commenters here. No problem. I'll defend Cristiano Ronaldo all day. Any other business? Trent Test match next week. First 3 days are sold out. We'd love to see you all there on Sunday. So if you like your Test cricket, England and the West Indies in town next week, and it'd be great to see you.
I'll give you the holiday island in Portugal and the relentless drive thing, but I would always watch Messi, and I'd love to go and watch some Test cricket on day 4. So I might see you there.
Final point: travelled to Miami to watch Lionel Messi, and it was the one game he missed while Argentina played Japan. So cheers, Leo.
Any final words, Prutz, before we go?
I tell you what, 2 more pet peeves. Just finish on a real downer. Pitch invaders that are over 15. Idiotic, ridiculous, a grown man wanting to sell,
on your screen there. And
people holding up a sign. Again, fellas over the age of 15, can I have your shirt? My God, that's mental. Don't stop it. Anyway, Maradona's better than both of those temps, so
I'd go to the pub with him. That'd be lively.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you'd be awake for a week, but other than that, I'm a bit paranoid, Diego. Can I go to bed yet? No, I can't.
Oh dear. Right, we must end it there. Thanks for everyone for being with us. Like I said, a pared down week next week. You'll hear from Colin Frey probably on Monday, and then Kieran Maguire on Forest and PSR and the state of football finance in general probably on Wednesday. I'll take my laptop with me and might do something if anything mad happens, but otherwise that'll be it for next week. Right, I'm not going to say goodbye to chaps because Prutz has got to go, but thanks for everyone's company. Have a good day, and we shall see you soon.